Next, I want to talk about ecosystems. And so we've been talking about biogeography, the geography of life, and which is interested in the distribution of Earth's plants and animals. And I should kind of note that it's not just about where things are, but why things are. How is it that you have these different types of species in different places? And a lot of that has to do with the relationship of living things to their non-living environment and also to other species. And so those relationships falls under the field of ecology. So ecologists study how living things interact with their non-living environments. And from the field of ecology, we have the concept of an ecosystem. So ecosystems are where you have communities of living things and their non-living environments. Ecosystems are complex things that have components like climate, topography, resources, human activities. These are all play roles in an ecosystem. And the reason why I say communities is that there's also a relationship between species and other species in the environment. And there's also a concept called biomes, and these are really big, major terrestrial ecosystems, global scale ecosystems like deserts or tropical rainforests. And mostly they're influenced by climate worldwide. And each one has major plant communities. We're going to be discussing some of the specific types of biomes, but other local factors can come into play as well, like the soil, topography, and even time itself. They also have biotic, which are living, or what we call community components, which in this example would include the living things here, like the tree, the grass, the rabbit, the fox, and even microorganisms in the soil. So what controls where we have different kinds of ecosystems? And as far as abiotic controls, the big one is climate. That we're going to see that ecosystems, especially biomes and climate, go together. But there's other things too, other abiotic controls. Soils play a role, topography or the physical landscape, and also time. We'll show an example of how time plays a role. And there are also biotic, or what we call community relationships. So this is how living things interact with each other. And for that matter, humans is a big biotic control because humans have to play a heavy role in the environment, especially in developed areas like California. So when we talk about time, one concept of how time influences ecosystems is a concept of succession. And this is the idea that plant communities that we see have evolved in different stages. That you start out with either for example, in the Hawaiian Islands, they have rainforests, but the Hawaiian Islands emerged out of the ocean without rainforests on it, but somehow over time those rainforests evolved. And the idea is that what you started off with is very simple plant life like crabgrass. And then over some number of years, these live and die and enrich the soil and provide the conditions for something else like other weeds, which live and die and set the stage for small plants, which live and die and set the stage for pines, in this example, which live and die and set the stage for more complex types of plants. So you start off with very simple plant life like you might see in a vacant lot, let's say, but then over time it can evolve into a more complicated ecosystem. And human activities play a role as well. There are some places where there's very little human activity and some where there's more. And we'll talk more about that towards the end. All right, so ecosystems have abiotic components like climate. That's the most important thing, and we're going to look at different climates and how they're associated with different ecosystems. Time, they get energy from the sun. They also have other considerations like matter, like water, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen. These are things that flow in and out of ecosystems. And one last topic, There's another field of ecology called landscape ecology, which is about how interactions between ecosystems across landscapes. So one thing a landscape ecologist might look at is how homogeneous or heterogeneous a landscape is. And then that has to do with how many kinds of living things can live there. Because if you have more kinds of types of environments, there's more ecological niches, more living things can live there. So this is a real geographical aspect of ecology. A few terms I want to introduce that are related to landscape ecology. One is ecotone. So this is a figure showing different kinds of environments. On the left, it seems to be clearly forest. On the right, it seems to be clearly grassland. But there is this in-between area that seems to be a little bit of both. That's what we call an ecotone. This is where the forest community in this example and the grassland, they overlap each other. And we can also look at the other terms include matrix. Matrix means what's the dominant plant community. On this side, the matrix is grassland, and on this side, the matrix is forest. However, inside this forest, you have patches of clear cutting or patches of swamp, or you also have corridors like this utility corridor or this riparian corridor. So these patches and corridors are exceptions to that matrix. So here is an example of where you have warm desert and tropical savanna in Africa. But if you were there, you wouldn't necessarily know you were on the edge of these environments because you would be within this ecotone. And here's another figure showing examples of matrix patches with it, patches of things and corridors that go through it.